for embarking on any criminal prosecution against him arising from certain conducts that are found to, in respect of which there are prima facie case that it should be overlooked. The fundamental consideration is not about individual, but about the public interest and ensuring that justice is done at any time and in any circumstances.
The recent confirmation of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Onegen, took longer than necessary, and your office as the Attorney General of the Federation has been accused of attempting to frustrate its confirmation. Could you set things in the right perspective?
Well, it depends on your appreciation of longer than necessary. But one thing you have to understand about the appointment of the Chief Justice of Nigeria is a process. And that process is a tripartite process involving the NJC, the executive, and indeed the legislature. So the question against this background is, what is it that is expected of the executive, and what is the time frame, the statutory or constitutional time frame within which the executive is expected to act? The Constitution is clear that 3 months window has been provided for the executive within which to act. So the question here is, does the executive act within the statutory or constitutional time frame of 3 months? My answer is yes. So if the time frame allowed by the Constitution remains a guide, and indeed the executive complied with the time frame, the idea of longer than necessary time does not even come into play. Well, the executive has acted within the 3 months time frame window, and then indeed the question of time does not come into play. The question of time can only come into play when indeed the executive had not acted within the time statutorily and constitutionally provided in the Constitution.
Exhausting the time provided by the law for the confirmation, maximizing the time to the very limit, could only mean that you had some reservation concerning the CJN's confirmation.
In the exercise of its executive powers relating to the appointment of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, a lot of factors naturally comes into play for the executive to look into. One of the factors perhaps are the security concerns, 2, the integrity questions, and all these things are issues that the executive must naturally consider, and indeed the agencies of the government must necessarily be allowed to do their job as it relates to vetting, verification, and confirmation of the individual concern. That, I believe, is the reason why the Constitution considered the 3 months period as the basis for, allowed for the exercise of that discretion in terms of considerations associated with security, integrity, and associated concerns. So if at the end of the day, those considerations were all factored into regard within the 3 months time frame, I don't think there is any cause for concern.
You have mounted an intense advocacy. You've been in the forefront of the whistleblowing bill, but there are public concerns concerning the protection of the whistleblower who might have put his life and possibly his career at stake.
Well, generally speaking, you see, whistleblower policy is a new policy that has come into play. And I assure you, on a daily basis, we are looking into the policy to improve on it, inclusive of the provision of protection to the whistleblowers. One, we have sustained and accommodated the policy of entertaining anonymous reports from whistleblowers. 2, we have sustained a policy of making security provision for whistleblowers. And then 3, as a matter of policy, there has been put in place a higher-powered presidential committee that is empowered to look into individual cases of whistleblowers and ensure that whatever consideration, whatever has to be done in terms of making provision for their protection is factored into mind. Recently, we have entertained a whistleblower complaint at the presidential level at a committee headed by the vice president. And I mean, a whistleblower was said to have been victimized within the public service career. And then a committee has been, a high-powered committee for that matter, at the presidential level has been put in place to look into it and ensure justice is done to the whistleblower and adequate protection is given to the whistleblower.
How would you describe the relationship between your ministry and some anti-corruption agencies under your watch, particularly the EFCC? How coordinated is the anti-corruption approach?
Even when information are provided by the whistleblowers, the Office of the Attorney General mostly rely on the security agencies, EFCC, DSS, ICPC, for the purpose of comprehensive information and perhaps maybe placing of post-no debit orders as it relates to accounts and associated things. So in terms of working relationship, to the extent that we work together harmoniously and then we, at the end of the day, jointly get results arising from that cooperation, one can definitely conclude that the relationship is harmonious and cordial.
The presidency directed you to investigate the DSS report on the acting chairman of the EFCC. What are your findings?
Well, my findings, as you rightly stated, the president asked me to investigate and report back, and I did. So it is not within my, again, the background of the fact that it was a presidential instruction, presidential directives. I think the findings should best be made public by the presidency and not by me.
But now there have been controversies surrounding trailing the confirmation of the acting EFCC chairman. What's the position of your office on this?
I cannot comment on that position. But one thing I can tell you clearly is that power is vested in the president constitutionally, and it is the president that have the prerogative, preserves, and the rights to make any conclusion arising therefrom. I cannot make any conclusion.
You may also join in this conversation by sending us your comments on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. Coming up on Question Time, setting the record straight on Nigeria's anti-graft war. Find out from the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. Join us again.